So I think if there's a takeaway, it's just listen. Start to just take a day where you pause and you listen to your body and you start to really tune in. And I believe that when you do that, you start to really tap into who you are. And that's the essence of freedom. The essence of freedom is really living in your purpose. Hello and welcome to Sweet Liberation today for another episode of our podcast. We're excited to be discussing today the topic of addictive behaviors and liberation, being able to achieve freedom and liberation, what that means, what that feels like, and what that looks like for everyday people like you and me. Excited about today's show, Luke?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Nabila, for introducing the show today. Yeah, really excited about this. I think it's a really uplifting topic to be discussing and really engaging. And I think let's dive right in and start talking about.
So I wanted to. It was really triggered by a conversation I had with somebody this week, and actually they were talking about the idea of comfort eating, and we've talked a lot about comfort eating on this show. But I really wanted to talk about the idea, the opposite way around, rather than the pattern of behavior that leads to kind of the need for that insatiable comfort. We've talked about dopamine, we've talked about addictive behaviors. Actually, the other way around. Let's talk about what freedom feels and looks like, because we're all about liberation here. We're all about helping people achieve freedom from all of these sorts of patterns of behavior that keep us locked in and unable to move forward. What do you think about that, Luke?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And I think that we've touched on it the other way around, haven't we? But looking at those behaviors and wondering what it is, how are we, what's our opinion on how we're going to help people and support people through this?
Exactly. So I wanted to talk about that because I was just watching something really impactful. Nothing to do with food, nothing to do with nutrition, but it is kind of to do with lifestyle. I was watching a guy who actually does liberty work with horses. Now, you're a horseman, Luke. Yeah. You yep. Your horses, and you've got two rescue horses. So you're the horseman. So do you want to describe what liberty work is from the horsey point of view? Well, I'll describe it, but it won't be the same.
Working at liberty with a horse is actually allowing the horse, and probably be working in sort of a school or what we would think of as an arena, that with that horse as the, if you like, the trainer or the person that knows that horse very well, probably is the owner of the horse. And the horse is at liberty literally to do whatever it wants. It's not an area I've been sufficiently trained in all that much, but I'm always at liberty with my horses when they're loose in the field with me. And the thing I love is that they actually want to be with me because we've formed a bond over 15 years. So that's my interpretation and view on liberty.
Yeah, and we've watched. I've become a bit of a really more of a person who is an enthusiast in horses. I'm not an expert in any way, but for anybody that already knows me very well, my grandfather was a gaucho in Argentina, so kind of runs in the blood. But I've not had that much contact with horses in my life, other than living in the New Forest, where they're kind of all around, but not having my own horse. And I've had the pleasure and honor of having close contact with your horses, Luke. But really, being fascinated kind of opened up this entire horsey world. And today I was watching this man who is from Switzerland, who was riding this horse and was talking about connecting through the intuition and through how it felt inside his body. And then saying that sometimes he will have days where he is not mapping out the day physically, looking at a map, but actually following what his body is telling him to do and the direction that his body is telling him to go. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about how that is really becoming in tune with your body, with what the body signals. Your body is like your messenger. It's telling you all the time, it's sending signals all day long, even in your sleep. Telling you what it needs and telling you what it wants. But we have become so out of tune with our bodies that we have kind of dampened down all of these signals that our body is sending us. So it triggered me really to kind of think a little bit deeper about the idea of liberation, because this man was doing liberty work with horses. And using his intuition and being in tune with his body, doing some incredible work. I mean, I am always looking and Googling up, kind of horsey things. And I saw this man and I was like, oh my goodness, this is what real freedom looks like. It doesn't mean that you're on your own. It doesn't mean an individualistic kind of life, because he was connected with this horse. But it actually is a complete connection with you, who you truly are and who you're truly meant to be. And we're all about that, because we kind of realized recently, haven't we, Luke, that we're biohackers.
Yes, sort of almost accidental biohackers. And I mean, yes, it's fantastic. And just touching on that point, I mean, those electrical signals. And I think one of the things that you and I both know as well is, even when we're sitting on a horse, it's almost that they can read our minds. And being bareback on a horse, and talking about that liberty is where you don't have us, you probably would definitely not have and no bridles and no bits of leather and no reins, and so the horse isn't tethered, so it can just work with you, at liberty.
Barefoot sometimes. Some people are barefoot as well.
Wow, amazing. And yes, and that is a really close bond that you actually have with a horse, and it's only really when you're bareback on a horse and you are completely trusting that horse to do or read your mind, and they seem to be able to do that because they're so intuitive. But yes, I totally agree. Going back to the biohacking side, yes, I didn't really realize. I mean, the things that we have done that are simple one-step processes, and that little bit of 1% that we've been doing every day for, say 180 days, for example, the last 6 months, that has become biohacking. It's almost our own interpretation of it.
Exactly. And people will probably be listening to this or watching this and go, what on earth are these two talking about now? What's horses got to do with this desugaring that they're so passionate about? But it's actually about connecting with your body and living a life that's fulfilling, that is really living on purpose, is at the real core of what we want people to feel. Because as you start to move away from physical addictive patterns, emotionally addictive patterns that can be toxic relationships as well, by the way, and all of these kinds of things, that you are looking for these mechanisms to reset you emotionally, to soothe you emotionally, but actually in doing so, sort of moving away from who you are in your center and at your core. And when you kind of remove all of that noise, all of that, physical pangs that you're constantly in search of something, and kind of bring that noise right down and start to really use your body as a like a compass rather than fighting against it, it becomes a completely different life journey. What do you think about that, Luke?
That's really interesting. And I think you're 100% right. And I think becoming intuitive and listening to your body, I think, is really, really important. And maybe saying to yourself, I don't know if people do this, is, how do I feel today? What is the day going to look like? And and sort of thinking about, that intuition, and sort of trying to tap into those feelings. And one of the things we were talking about before we came on air was, this ability to sort of get in touch with yourself and tune out some of the other noise that we've got in our day-to-day lives and distractions, and maybe sit for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the morning and actually, start to actually feel, what am I feeling? And also look forward and make some, positive plans about what you're actually going to be doing during your day. And that can include what you're going to be doing, food planning, and all of these sorts of things. And I think, that's a really important.
It's just kind of bringing yourself back in tune. And you and I meditate regularly, if not daily. But I was listening to Tara Schwartz, who's a UK former psychiatrist who's really gone into the sort of wellness space from a point of view of coaching and helping people in that kind of really practical steps to achieve this kind of optimal state of, I would say, your optimal state of being you. Like, who is it that you are? What is this journey that you're on? And how can you do things every day to help to move you into this fulfilled life that you are dreaming of, without fighting yourself? So Tara Schwartz, actually, I was listening to her recently, although she totally supports meditation, which we both practice, but she was saying that she does this really simple thing, which is that as she wakes up in the morning, rather than thinking, okay, I'm going to meditate for 15 minutes, she's flipped it slightly differently. And she says, she's rather decided to be in a mindful state for the whole day. So how does she do that without actually, being on and meditating all day? What she said is that she just incorporates these kind of small rituals, and she loves rituals, into her day so that it brings her back into a mindful state. So she starts her day. This is really cool. And I was like, I love this. It's so simple. She starts her day by waking up. And when she wakes up in bed, rather than getting her phone and do all the naughty things that a lot of us do, what she does is she lies there and actually feels the bed around her, the pillow underneath her head, the covers and the sheets on her, and starts to feel gratitude for those things, just for those things. And I thought, that is so beautiful. And then gets up, takes time to get up, and then will make her tea. And she says she has an entire ritual on the tea that she makes. And then whilst as she's doing a few other things, she takes some probiotics or something like that, she said. And then while she waits for the probiotics to kick in, then she'll look at her phone. So it could be like a good few minutes, or she'll take herself to a different room. And all these little things that you can do through the day that actually can have a profound impact on how you feel through the day, because you're weaving in these beautiful, small but profound rituals. What do you think about that?
That sounds amazing. I hadn't thought of something as simple as an idea. And as you say, feeling gratitude is such an important thing that everybody identifies that, and the simple things, being grateful for certain things. And I had a very, very a story that in the last few days, and it was actually somebody that had an accident and they'd lost their arm actually on the London Underground, and it was a terribly tragic story. But what they actually did to get through it is they actually said, no, I feel gratitude towards the arm that I used to have. So even things that amazing as that, but the arm I used to have, I'm grateful for that. And it was so mind-blowing. And although it was a tragic story, they used gratitude actually to get them through that horrific thing. But equally, as you say, the simple things that we can all say, what within this thing that could be, what is good within this? And actually looking at the good. If it seems like a really bad day, let's have a look at what's actually good within the day, and then start feeling gratitude. And then that alters your state of mind, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because you start to she talks about, Tara Schultz talks about, exactly what's going on in your brain, because she's a neuroscientist, she's a psychiatrist, practiced psychiatry in the UK. So she can come at it from that scientific point of view. But now it's interesting because the scientific and the spiritual worlds are kind of uniting.
Yeah.
I would say for the first time in maybe 1,000 years, let's say, or maybe two. And we're bringing these kinds of uniting of understandings from the scientific point of view, from the spiritual kind of practices that have been around for thousands of years. And they're kind of uniting and helping people to kind of achieve this better and more well-rounded, I would say, state of being. And being free, having freedom. We talk a lot about freedom, a lot of our marketing in our business, Zukr, and in this podcast, Sweet Liberation Suite. But really, what does freedom mean if you are unable to be and calm and content in who you are and grateful for the things around you? Then they're just words until they go into practice. And I think that's really important, because if you're switching addictions from one addiction to another, let's say some people, you've seen this, I remember back in the day when people used to smoke, you'd find that people would then stop smoking and then start eating. And then you'd see them 6 months later and they'd have put on 10 kilos in 6 months.
Yeah.
Have you seen that, haven't you?
Yeah, it happens a lot. I mean, it was quite a well-known thing that people that were trying to give up smoking back in the 80s, and then, swapping that addiction, as you say, for food. And I think there's probably two things going on there. Probably cigarettes were suppressing their appetite. Secondly, they were doing something, it's a bit like doing something with your hands. Sometimes people smoke because they want to do something. Their hands are busy and they're then sort of smoking.
Yeah.
No, that is an addiction. It's actually the need to do something and fiddle. And so, if you're going to do something like that with and actually, I'll tell you a thing that I had is when I was cycling a lot and I was eating a lot, what I actually found, and this is a habit, and I'm not sure if it was an addiction or a habit, but I was actually used to eating a lot more food. And then when I stopped training and I didn't need all those calories, it's all of the time and that was one of the struggles I had, as when I stopped training as a cyclist again, you start gaining weight. And the funny thing is, actually, if you look at any sort of fasting, all of a sudden you've got lots of free time, because all that time you had when you were eating, and that was the thing I noticed. And when I was doing a 5-2 fasting plan, which a lot of people are familiar with, I didn't know what to do. I had like time in the evening when I wasn't cooking, and I was sort of like, oh, this is all really strange. So you've got to be aware of these things and have the foresight, haven't you, to plan ahead. And if you're going to make changes, what are you going to fill that time with?
Exactly. Interesting. And I know that, my late stepdad, who actually died from pancreatic cancer, probably related to the amount of smoking that he did in his life, definitely put him at a higher risk. But that is interesting, because that was a mindful time for him. So he would sit there and have his cigarette and out looking, outside in the garden, and he would be thinking. So you replace one, actually part of the habit of stopping to think isn't a problem. It was the cigarettes that were the problem. But actually taking those times out during the day isn't necessarily a problem if you're just going to go and think and just clear your head for a moment. That's a good thing. But yeah, so people are constantly, you have this need and this yearning and this desire to kind of to soothe yourself, because you feel dysregulated, you don't feel quite okay, and so you're going for the food, you're reaching for the things. But actually, to be free from all of that, like you said, you had the extra time. What can you now do with your life when you don't have this yearning, this feeling constantly of dysregulation? How can you then channel that to do something amazing with your life? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Or even if you've got something like a hobby, or you're, keen on, maybe reading a new book or something, use that time constructively. And start learning about the things that perhaps you'd never thought you'd have time to do, because it's a very, a bit of an excuse, isn't it? Something, I haven't got time to do this, or I don't have time to do that because I'm absolutely maxed with my schedule. But actually, there are things you can do to actually, become more efficient, or win extra time through making some lifestyle changes.
Exactly. And not necessarily a bad thing to kind of swap one habit for another habit, but what are you going to swap that habit to? So, thinking when you have stopped doing something, what are you going to replace it with?
Yes.
Where would you like to go? What would you like to do in order to kind of, improve your life? What are your dreams? And it gives you, I think, when you are in that transition, it gives you the opportunity to dream. And I think we're all about that in terms of our personal development as well, aren't we?
Very much so. It's important to have, dreams and goals, that really. And I know it sounds a bit of a cliche when people sort of talk about having goals, but it's important to set things, even if it's something like saying, well, next summer holiday, I would like to go to this place. And I think that is an important thing. And then start planning on how you're actually going to achieve that, because small steps will get you there to those goals. And I think, yes. And so, and hope as well, having hope for that everything, or knowing that, making sure that what you actually do with your journey is that you're actually molding it and honing it in the right direction. Yeah.
Exactly. I think so. And so it really got me thinking today about that, and really what freedom could look like for people that are joining us on this journey, because we are every day doing something towards improving ourselves, towards improving our health. And I'm just so grateful every morning. I wake up now and because of my autoimmunity, I lie there in dread, because you don't know when you've got an autoimmune disease, you don't know what's going to happen when you wake up. Your body could be in a complete, breakdown situation, and you lie there and you're in dread. And to lie there and then actually start moving my hands, I normally start with my hands to see if they're swollen, my wrists, and to actually sort of go through my joints and actually feel that I'm able to move my body again. I'm so grateful for that every morning, So these little things that we do start to have like compounding impacts, don't they?
They do. Yes. And there are lots of things that everybody can do in their day, and I think going back to the things like, yes, the gratitude and looking at what's great in our lives. And I think that is so important. Great for the mindset. And also the other thing about it is when you're in that positive mindset, guess what? You probably aren't going to go for the snacks, because that is a bit of a thing, isn't it? If you're feeling positive, and is that people actually fill some of their time by snacking, don't they? And they also, and I very much think that people aren't sure what they're going to be doing, and they grab a packet of crisps or something. And I think that's something that we can all be guilty of if we've got bored with something. It's something to do as a time filler. So yeah, you're right. I think we need to. I don't know, how do we do it? Have you got any ideas and clues for people, plans?
Yes, I think for me, one of the things I found is again through the meditation and mindfulness practices that I've been doing for years now, is really sort of listening to the signals that my body is giving me. So as I said, I do like a joint checker really in the morning, every morning. But for people that don't suffer from autoimmunity, I just do that because I need to kind of know where I'm at on that day, any given day. But to sort of really kind of feel, if there's an ache or a pain, to kind of give your body a little bit of stretching. These are all things that you think, that's so obvious. But so many people don't do it. They live with pain, and they get used to living with the pain. They're not really listening to what their body's doing. And when they wake up in the morning, for me, I don't actually need food in the morning. So why would I eat if I'm not hungry? So I wait until I get a hunger signal. I'm not going to go beyond that. I'm not going to be starving, hungry, just to make a point that I'm intermittent fasting or something like that. I'll just eat when my body says it's time to nourish me.
Yeah.
And just kind of starting with those really small things that are just really doable to bring when your body's asking you for a drink. I know that there's a culture of sipping water, but now, dentists are saying, look, we do need to give our mouth, our oral health, some rests from this constant sipping of water. It's not a good thing to be constantly sipping water. Have the water that you need, but have it in, give your mouth some time when there isn't anything going through it. Don't be snacking all day long, sipping all day long. Have your water at a time, have your meals at a time. We didn't used to have bottles of water when we were growing up, did we, Luke?
No, we didn't.
This is a new culture.
No, it's new. And I'm not sure quite where it's come from.
Great marketing. Great marketing as well.
I was going to say, actually, when you mentioned about water, and one of the things that they do say, and I noticed that I know that there are some tricks, and sometimes that there was somebody that had said, if you have a cup of water before a meal, you don't actually overeat. Because water, actually, you can think you're hungry and you're actually only thirsty. But also, if you've had some water and then a meal, you'll probably not eat the whole meal. And they always say that, going back to when I was growing up, it was always, you were told you were a good child if you finished your whole plate of food. Whereas, of course, nowadays, they're saying, well, actually, no, don't say that to children. Let them leave something if they want to, because otherwise it leads to, it can lead to obesity and overeating.
It's a strange reward system, absolutely, for overeating. You're rewarding overeating, which is not a good thing. So then that becomes the normal. And so just kind of breaking things down, there's a lot of, I would say, overcomplication of things that are actually extremely simple. And it's the simple things are really profound. That's one of the things that we have found in this journey that we've been taking. It's the simple changes and shifts that you make that can be really profound. So it's just starting in the morning, like, Tara Schwartz says, just lying there in bed and just kind of giving gratitude for being awake rather than looking at your phone. Just take like 2 or 3 minutes to take some deep breaths while you're in bed and just be grateful for feeling warm, that you've got a pillow. So many people are sleeping in the streets, across the world. And to just have that gratitude for that moment of being awake, waking up, making it to another day. First of all, we should be grateful for that. And then, those little moments, just taking that time to pause before you start your day. And then creating small rituals through the day. I would definitely echo what she says. I think that is brilliant. And I love to do that with my little girl. She comes home from school and we have our little tea ritual. We like to sit down and have a cup of tea. And that's just like that break of just connecting, talking to each other, reflecting, telling each other the day is such an important thing that we both look forward to, that beautiful ritual, small, simple things. And it's not expensive or complicated.
And it's one of the things that occurred to me, actually, and my sister had given me a present recently, and it was it was a sand timer that worked for half an hour. And at the time I thought, well, that actually is going to be really useful, because again, for me, rituals, I'm really one of these people that I loathe the gym, and but as you get older, you know that actually you've got to look after your body, because your body and your core strength and actual just general strength protects you from injuries and being able to do everything. And I would seriously encourage people that if you're getting up and you've done your period of gratitude, is there anything you could do for 10 or 15 minutes that's that you could make a ritual and a habit? And they say a habit is formed if you do something about 14 times in a row. By the, you've got that habit is almost ingrained in. But maybe 15 minutes of some gentle exercise or a gentle walk, or something like that in the morning is going to make a massive difference over time. Start small, not too big. But again, that as a ritual for me is something that I've now embraced. I didn't realize that it was actually a ritual, but I think it is a ritual that I'm going to be embracing.
Yeah, and then that feeling of rising into who you are and really living much more in your purpose, where you're starting to feel, I always feel these emotions kind of come through the center of your body, don't they?
Yes.
The kind of feeling, anxiety feeling can start anywhere from the sort of throat all the way down to the middle. But also the feeling of peace can kind of be this really beautiful, dissipated feeling of where there's just none of those pangs of anxiety going through you. And you can feel that this feels good, and that your body's sort of starting to, the very subtle signs of leaning towards something.
Yes.
And all these thoughts came from watching that amazing man who was riding at Liberty.
Yeah.
And I just thought he was absolutely amazing. And all of these things, that we are so far removed from the natural environment, from the natural world, and yet we are biological beings.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Are you talking about the man with the white Camargue horses, the French chap that?
Yeah, no, his name is Matthias, and I will. Yeah,
Yes.
He was absolutely amazing, and I loved his work. And Matthias Gayson.
Right. Yes.
He's a young guy who is just outstanding riding at Liberty, and really talking through the kind of the horses feeling their anxiety that they feel when they are really uneasy with a rider on their back, and the transition of having that perfect feeling of trust.
Yeah.
That they're not going to feel the perfect feeling of trust if the person isn't calm and connected and grounded.
Right. Yes.
So it's a beautiful loop. It's he call a bio loop, sort of a gorgeous loop where things can really start to move forward in the right way. They can also be a negative loop when you can spiral out of control the wrong way, but you can pull yourself back. I think when the more in tune we are with our instinct, intuition, and our feelings, the body is giving us the signals, from hunger to feeling, every other feeling and sensation that we've got, and we can be so detached from it. So I think if there's a takeaway, it's just listen. Start to just take a day where you pause and you listen to your body, and you start to really tune in. And I believe that when you do that, you start to really tap into who you are. And that's the essence of freedom. The essence of freedom is really living in your purpose. What would you think?
Wow. Yes, definitely. Well, I think for sure. I mean, you've captured it beautifully there. Yes. I think you're right. And and I think that the more that you become in tune, you more liberated you become. Right. And I think that it is important to look after your body. Focus on the things that you're eating, making sure that you're not eating things that are not really doing you any good. Because actually, over a very short period of time, if you identify some of the things that are not great for your body, you can easily cut them out, and you don't actually miss them. And I liken it to things like vegetables that are not in season. Or say a piece, if you're a meat eater and you've not had a piece of, I don't know, fish for a while, you don't actually miss it that much because there are so many other substitutes. And so I think there is, I think it's really important to address that and be and get some focus around it.
To get some focus around it, and I think people always think about physical addictions like food and substances,
Right.
But we can be in addictive patterns of behavior, and we can so remove toxins from life. When you remove physical toxins from life for as much as you can, but also the emotional ones. Like, we all know who we have in our lives that are causing us like toxic distress. Like, so I think for our own well-being, just know that we are having to live in an environment which is very complicated these days. And sometimes just bringing things down to simplicity, to their basics, even if it's just a couple of times a day, can just help us to reset. And we love also the idea of grounding. We do that whenever we can, don't we, Luke? Sort of taking our shoes and socks off.
Yes, and standing on the beach on grass or something. Yes, because of all the ions that you can absorb from the earth.
That's Gary Brecker that talks a lot about. Every single spiritual teacher for life, from the beginning of time, has always talked about connecting with the earth. And I don't know. I was brought up by hippies, so I've always been walking barefoot on the grass. That's just how I was brought up. I love it. But yeah, just so much goodness from it.
And breathing. Have you got any sort of tips on breathing? I mean, breathing. Right.
Deep breathing. Yeah. For sure. I mean, I'm not sort of, I don't know, some people are qualified in breath work. I just go, we all know how to breathe. So I'm not qualified in breath work, but I think I know how to breathe because I'm still here. So, but taking really deep breaths in through the nose, holding for a moment or two, and then breathing out through the mouth. So you're almost sort of like this, and breathing, very controlled, breathing out, and then breathing in, holding for a couple of seconds, and then breathing out. And it's that holding of that breath. It's almost like just brings all of your body and all of your hormones, everything back into alignment.
Interesting.
And if you can even sort of orchestrate that so that you're even in tune with your own heartbeat, it just becomes really, really beautiful. And I actually find, and I was talking to your sister about this a few months ago, Lou, I actually find as I'm meditating that my breathing starts off, I do initially the deep breaths, but actually my breathing becomes very shallow to the point that I hardly am breathing at some point through meditation. And when I'm deep meditation, it's like my heart rate is so low that the breathing becomes very shallow towards the end. And that's in deep meditation. But these are all things that you discover the more you're in tune with your body. So I would just invite people to start really simple. You don't have to go that far.
Something quite important, actually. Sorry to interrupt you on that. It was just Tony Robbins has done a book, and he talks about breathing. One of the really interesting things that he says, is obviously the book is interesting in its entirety, but one thing he says about breath is it's actually an exhaust pipe. Now, if you think about it, you're breathing in oxygen and taking it into your bloodstream. What is getting the things out of your bloodstream? Well, think about it. Deep breath, exhale, and you're actually ridding your body of toxins by doing that. So I would say to anybody, if you're thinking about it and think it's not really for me, have a think about it in terms of that and actually ridding yourself of things that you don't want in your body. There's another take on it, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's a really practical, I love Tony Robbins, really practical way of thinking about it. So yeah, whether it's, the ancient masters all the way back thousands of years, or the modern masters, whether Tony Robbins or anybody else within this kind of personal development and wellness space, are back saying the same things, the really simple, profound things that make a massive impact on our lives. Are the things that actually cost nothing and we can start doing from right now. So I would invite everybody to give it a go, see how it goes, and really start to move towards what freedom and liberty means for you. With that said, do you have any last words you want to share, Luke?
Well, not really. I think we've covered so much today, and I think it's been really, really interesting and very useful. And I hope everybody's enjoyed the podcast.
Yeah.
As we say, it's really important that people, like and subscribe, and there's a button there. More people that we can get subscribed, the more the beautiful guests that we can have come on to our show. And and that's obviously very important to get those ratings. So I think, talking about the liberty side of things, and actually, trying for people to have a think and do that the gratitude, I think that's so valuable. So I think I totally echo everything you've said.
Start simple and start small. So with that said, we will love you and leave you for another episode, and we can't wait to be back next time. Join us for Sweet Liberation. As Luke said, make sure that you like and share. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet and you're listening to this, hit the subscribe button. It doesn't take very long, but it helps us to help this channel to grow, and it helps us to bring you fantastic guests, topics and ideas, and let us know what takeaways you have from today's show and what actions you're going to take on your journey to sweet liberation. With that said, we'll love you and leave you. Bye for now. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.